Alito, Shalom, Hotep, Machiavanakan. Hello, I'm Lewis Gordon. I'm the head and a professor in the philosophy department of the University of Connecticut. And I'm also honorary professor in the unit for the humanities at Rhodes University in South Africa. I'm part of the Decolonial Summer School at the University of South Africa. I'm also the honorary president of the Global Center for Advanced Studies, and there are a variety of other things, of which there is also my position as the chair of public philosophy for the American Philosophical Association. Now, I mention these not to basically just talk about the positions I have, but they're highly relevant to this book. The last one particularly, public philosophy. One of the enduring allegories in philosophy is from Plato's Republic. Now, philosophy didn't begin in what we know as ancient Greece. Actually, in the book, I talk about, at a certain point, nearly 1,500 years of philosophy before the pre-Socratics or ancient Greek philosophers. And that is because I actually begin the book with talking about philosophers who dealt with public problems and reflections on wisdom and knowledge in ancient East Africa. I begin, for instance, with Antef, one of the ancient African philosophers. But I bring up Plato's Republic because Plato's Republic talks about what it is to be imprisoned in a cave of falsity, a cave of misinformation, a cave of disinformation, shadows. In fact, given what this country, the United States, has gone through under the Trump administration, we know what it's like to be living under the perils of misinformation, disinformation. And we understand this in what happened on January 6th, when that misinformation affected people who, many of whom are highly educated people, in some cases, people who have no real reason for grief and bad judgment in the society. They're acting in many cases on misinformation, disinformation, and of course, there are always those who are willfully ignorant. But in Plato's allegory of the cave, the philosopher is the person who ascends and discovers there's an outside. And that discovering that there's an outside means that that philosopher is to go and learn and continue to learn. And that is how I understand philosophy, teaching, what it is to be a professor. We are people who fell in love with learning, and we continue to learn. So the book, Freedom, Justice, and Decolonization, is connected to that public insight. And I'll explain what I mean in 1 second, but first I have to give a shout out to the artist who designed the cover. People have been writing me like crazy about the cover, and it makes my heart very proud because the artist is Sula Gordon. And my daughter, Sula Gordon, is an artist, and she's also a playwright, political activist. And one day when I was looking at her artwork, I saw this amazing piece of art. I said, can I use it for the cover of my book? And she was like, oh, sure. And then she said, but I could design the cover. So she gave a design, and there it is, this beautiful cover. And I thank Sula Gordon for that. Now, this point about public philosophy, this book was written with me going on the excursion of, as a public philosopher, addressing 3 themes. I went across the globe, meeting with philosophers in every context. And when I say every, I mean every, even in authoritarian countries, going through stealth meetings, I was able to meet with dissidents and learn with them about how to think our contemporary condition. That is one of the reasons why when I am in the United States, watching what unfolded over the past 4 years, as people say we might be on the verge of becoming a fascist or a totalitarian state or an authoritarian state, what many Americans, many people in the United States or rather don't understand is when you go to authoritarian fascist countries, you know what they look like? They look like the United States. And this is one of the insights that's crucial because many people in centers of power are unaware that they're in the cave. So in this book, I went and met with these dissidents. I met in people in different countries, from Kuwait to Russia, Slovenia. I also went in places that were doing much liberation work, whether it's South Africa, Senegal. India is complex because India is suffering through authoritarianism right now. But when I said Machia Vanakam when I opened up, that was a shout out to my Tamil ancestry. So freedom, justice, and decolonization addresses these three themes because you see, everywhere you go in the world today, freedom is a public value. People talk about freedom even when there are people around them trying to eradicate it. Those people who stormed the Capitol in the United States love to say the word freedom, but they were fighting for the disenfranchisement of 8 million more voters than they. They were fighting for the disenfranchisement of Black voters. We know this with the Confederate flag. We know this because ultimately it's a history in this country, the United States, of disenfranchising Black voters. People also like to talk about justice. But one of the things that I have seen over the years, and any Black person could tell you this, Black people have to live daily, not only with ongoing injustices of this and many anti-Black racist societies, but we also have to live with also this other contradiction, that if a system is designed for its idea of justice to pertain to certain peoples, then other people may actually be brought before that justice where the rules are rigorously applied and it dehumanizes them. So there's a form of unjust justice. So it means justice needs to be interrogated for an understanding of justice for a humanity that is actually reaching out for the dignity and freedom of all. To put differently, we need to go beyond the models of justice we have for a more profound understanding of what it is to be available in a radically democratic society. And so the last part, decolonization, connects to what I just said, because you see, that question of colonization raises the question of whether our understanding of justice, our understanding of freedom, is through the colonial lens that actually are designed to disempower many people on the planet. So the book concludes with a conversation with a philosopher from Russia. She's Circassian. Her name is Medina Tlotsonova. And the reason I wanted to end with her, because you see, it's a dialogue. And a lot of people don't understand that the Circassians, after whom erroneously certain racist thinkers thought were the origins of the white race that led to the notion of Caucasians, a lot of people don't realize that actual Caucasians, historically Circassians, were people of color. They were Black people. So to have this woman of color philosopher in Russia, and now she's in Sweden, and I have a conversation, because I was born in Jamaica, I grew up as a child in the Bronx, New York. Both of us are committed to the decolonization of freedom and justice, but we're also committed to the decolonization of philosophy. Because the philosophy that many of us have inherited, that are taught in many academic institutions, fail to see how symbiotically linked to the mechanisms of colonialism and dehumanization that we face today. So this book, Freedom, Justice, and Decolonization, is also a book about the decolonization of philosophy, of thought, and a lot of the values, such as freedom and dignity, that we hold dear.